All right, hello everybody. Today I want to talk to you a little bit about introductions. The style that I'm going to show you today is the style that can be used in virtually any situation for just about any type of writing or speech or presentation. Pretty straightforward, and you'll see this if you take a look at what we've done here at the end of this and you open a magazine or listen to a speech. This is sort of a formula that's used over and over and over again from our best writers and our best speakers. So let's take a look here. An introduction typically consists of two parts. We're going to have a hook and we're going to have a theme statement paragraph. We've talked a little bit about hooks already, so I want you to first imagine that you have already written this hook today. Okay, so we're going to focus on this second part here, the theme statement paragraph today. So our opening consists of this hook, or we've grabbed the reader with something specific, and then now we need to get into the second part, the theme statement paragraph. Okay, the hook, of course, is intended to draw the reader into the text by piquing their interest, challenging them, getting them to pay attention. Okay, and then the theme statement paragraph, really important and often screwed up by a lot of speakers and writers here. You want to make sure that you identify the topic at hand and present a position on that topic. Okay, a lot of people skip this and assume the audience knows what they're talking about, but we can't do that. So you want to make sure that you identify the topic, define the topic before presenting a position. So we're going to today look at the four parts of this of this theme statement paragraph. There are four parts here. So again, we've had the hook first, and if that's in a speech, maybe you've talked about something that relates to a hook for a couple of minutes, or you have an introductory, an opening paragraph that hooks your audience. Now we're moving into part two, which is the theme statement paragraph. Okay, so I'll go through each one of these parts right now. Okay, the first part I refer to as the statement of assumption. And so here we're going to begin this paragraph or this section with a generalized statement about the topic of the paper. So you need to introduce the topic here. This statement should be regarded as a simple truth that all people can agree on. You do not want to have an opinion at this point. So hook transitioned into this general statement of assumption. General truth stated right at the beginning, and this could be multiple sentences long. So let's imagine, and here's the example that I have right here, let's imagine that you are writing a paper on the drug problem in athletics, okay? And so you might have this situation going on here where sports athletes are using illegal drugs, particularly like steroids or something like that. And so you have a hook. Maybe this hook is about a particular athlete who just got caught, and it's a real shock. Okay. Now we move into the theme statement paragraph. Begins with something like this. On television programs like ESPN SportsCenter, hardly a week goes by without a report of another marquee athlete corrupted by drugs. Okay? So this would be a general statement of assumption. Not many people are going to argue with you on that. Okay? Then we want to move into our statement of fact. Okay? So you got a general statement of assumption, and then you follow that with actual concrete fact here. Okay? Like it says here the writer moves from the general assumption to something more specific, something that supports the claim identified in the statement of assumption. Generally, this is a statistic or a quote from a qualified source, some sort of factual information here. Okay? If you're doing this in writing, you want to make sure that you cite the information. If you are just speaking it, make sure that you attribute it by saying, according to so-and-so, this is the case. Okay? This again could take multiple sentences to do here. If we're continuing with our example about a paper or a presentation on drug abuse with athletes, we could have this sort of thing here. We Again, no opinions. So we've moved from this general statement of assumption, second sentence, or the second set of sentences. Even such over-the-counter drugs as certain cold remedies are abused by top athletes to enhance performance. One report published in Sports Illustrated indicated that 78% of athletes have tried performance-enhancing drugs during their careers. Okay, so we went from a general assumption, this happens all the time, to a statement of fact, where we actually have this statistic right in here that tells us that, in fact, it does happen quite common. Okay. So those two sections are then followed by our thesis. Okay, and this is where we're going to actually present our actual position on this particular paper. Okay, so now it's time to state your position. Whether it's a claim of fact, a claim of value, or a claim of policy, you need to clearly state your thesis at the end of this paragraph. Many writers love to use what's called an although clause at the beginning of their thesis. You'll see that with this particular example here, beginning with the word although, while, though, or despite. Be sure that the actual subject of this sentence is a noun. Usually it's the subject of your paper, is also the grammatical subject of your thesis. If you're doing a claim of policy, like in an argumentative essay or in a persuasive speech, you might use words like should be or must be. These things need to be done. This is a typical language in argumentative piece. Okay? This right here is pretty much your most important sentence in your entire essay or your presentation, your speech. This one's crucial. Okay? Generally, we do this as one sentence long. So here's the example here. I'm not sure if you're able to see this. My face might be in the way here, so let me move this down so you can see it a little bit better. Here we go. So while difficult to police, drug-abusing athletes must face tougher regulations to counteract this growing problem. Okay, so this is your one sentence. You've done the general statement of assumption, introduced the topic of drugs in sports. And we've got our statement of fact, where we identify a specific fact, a statistics in this case, of how drugs are used regularly by athletes, followed by a position, which is that we need to have tougher regulations for drug-abusing athletes. Now, I like to finish my theme statement paragraph with what I call a statement of condition. And this is actually kind of complex. I won't spend all this time talking about this here, but the statement of condition, really what its main purpose is to reinforce this the thesis statement. So you want to make sure that your audience actually paid attention and they saw that you presented a position. And so in a sense, you're kind of going, hey, look at this. I actually said something important here. So our statement of condition reinforces that thesis. A statement of condition also can provide conditions for that thesis. So this thesis is only true if these things fall into place. And that's when you get into a little bit more of a nuanced essay. But for the purposes now, let's think of it as just reinforcing our thesis here. So in an analysis paper, this might be something where you indicate the direction that you're going to go in with your thesis. I generally think that a more sophisticated writer might use this sentence to place conditions on the thesis, recognizing that the thesis might not hold merit unless certain ideas or certain criteria are met. Okay? It might also indicate that the ideas, it may also indicate what might happen if the ideas in the thesis aren't met. So common starter words of this sentence are words like if or unless. Okay? Ultimately, it should reinforce the central idea of the thesis. Okay? I often refer to this as the double tap for those of you who are Zombieland fans. And you know that in the movie Zombieland, to kill a zombie, you don't just shoot it once. You've got to shoot it a second time. You provide a double tap to make sure that it's dead. And in this case, we're going to present a double tap in the form of a statement of condition to make sure our audience recognized that a thesis was just stated. Okay, so here, this should be just one sentence long. And here's an example for our same topic here. Unless regulations are tightened, which was stated in the thesis before that, performance-enhancing drug abusers will continue to threaten not only their own health, but also the fairness and integrity of athletic competition. Okay, so this reinforces our thesis, and now we are ready to continue with the rest of our essay or presentation, where we're going to present an organized pattern of evidence to support this thesis. Okay, let's pause for a second. Okay, now let's take a look at our introduction or our opening as a whole. And here is an example of how this might work. So this includes, what I'm going to show you here includes the hook and the theme statement paragraph. Again, something that is commonly used in all sorts of situations. So here we have a topic. Well, you'll see what the topic is going to be and how it's introduced. So now we're going to start with this first paragraph is a hook, okay? And a hook here speaks specifically about an individual here. So it starts off with, one morning in May, 7-year-old Francis Bach walked to the market in Nimlal, Sudan to sell some eggs and peanuts. The farmer's son had made the same trip many times before. I was living a very good life with my family, he recalls today. I was a happy child. But this happy life ended that day in 1986. Arab raiders from northern Sudan swept into the villages, sowing death and destruction. His entire family, mother, father, and 2 sisters, died in the attack. The raiders grabbed Francis and several other children, lashed them to donkeys, and carried them north for 2 days. Then the children were parceled out to their captors. Francis went to a man named Giamba Abdullah. For the next 10 years, the boy tended his owner's goats and cattle. He slept with the animals, never had a day off, and was rarely fed properly. He treated me like an animal. He even called me an animal. He beat me, Francis says. There's no joy. Even when I remembered my happy life before, it only made me sad. In 1996, Francis escaped to Sudan's capital, Khartoum. Then he made his way to Cairo, Egypt, and eventually, in 2000, to the United States, which admitted him as a refugee. So there's our hook. Now we've got to make that transition. The second paragraph is the theme statement paragraph. You'll see all 4 parts here. From the villages of Sudan to the factories, sweatshops, and brothels of India and South Asia, slavery and human trafficking still flourish. Okay, so statement of assumption here talks about how this sort of thing is still happening here. Not many people can disagree with that, so this is a good general assumption here. It also introduces us to the topic of human trafficking. Okay, and it also makes a nice transition right here. Bach is one of the lucky ones. He escaped. Now we're going to move into our statement of fact. You'll see a statistic here. According to a recent report, some 27 million people worldwide are held in some form of slavery, forced prostitution, or bonded labor. Some humanitarian groups buy captives' freedoms, but critics say that only encourages slave traders to seize more victims. Meanwhile, nearly 1 million people are forcibly trafficked across international borders annually and held in captivity. Even in the United States, thousands of women and children from overseas are forced to become sex workers. Okay, so that is a longer statement of fact here. We've got our statement of assumption, followed by a statement of fact. We've introduced the audience to this topic here, pretty heavy topic for sure. And now we're going to get into our thesis statement. Okay, and that starts right here with the word while. While Congress strengthened the Trafficking Victims Protection Act in 2000, human trafficking continues to thrive, creating a significant harm to our way of life. One sentence thesis, this is a problem, is basically what the thesis says. Now we have our statement of condition. This one begins with the word until, which is quite common. Until more serious steps are taken, innocent people will continue to be mistreated in horrific ways for political and economic gains. Okay? General statement of assumption is up here. Statement of fact right here. Thesis statement followed by statement of condition right here. This is a formula that you see over and over and over again from professional writers. Okay? I hope this helps. Hope this is something that you can use in your own project or essay. Good luck.